Hi everyone, welcome. It's Lavender Sky Panther. It's Friday, April 7th, 2023, and this is show number 187 called Australia, Australia. You're going to see why, and oh my goodness, if you're in Australia, oh holy flying fairy bread, hang on to your hats everybody. You are in for quite a ride with this show. I am just astonished of what came out of some photos so generously given by JM near Brisbane, Australia, Queensland. Thank you, JM. I don't think you have any idea of what you had captured in your photos because I was just shocked, shocked when I discovered it. So let's all enjoy what we're about to see. You don't see it very often. And I almost missed it. So let's get into this. So now this show is going to be based solely on two photos, just two photos coming in from near Brisbane, looking south at about 4:30 in the afternoon. And it's an area where there were reportedly UFO sighting, or I don't know if sightings plural. But anyway, let's have a look. So this cover obviously is showing you a preview of what's about to come. So just, wait for it and just see, we're going to lead up to how we even arrived at this scene. So yes, I'm saying, is it possible? Excuse me. This is a being piloting a semi-cloaking craft. And I'm going to tell you, yes, it is. And we're not seeing a case of paredolia. So this is pretty darn exciting. So let's get into it. All right, so this is one of the photos that came in again so kindly from JM near Brisbane, Australia, Queensland. Again, thank you. And thank you to all of you for joining me anytime you join in on any one of my shows. I really appreciate any time you can spend looking at what I've put down, and hopefully you can see what I'm seeing, and actually even far beyond it. Maybe you can see some other things that I don't see. For now, I'm just going to focus on the A, B, and C that I've got labeled, and maybe a couple of other things. Just know that there was so much more going on in each of the two photos that came in than I could get to. And then I made that astonishing discovery of that being piloting the semi-cloaking craft, and then I just really just fixated on that a bit. So, and another little being nearby. So you're going to see all of this coming up. Anyway, so we've got this scene looking south. And, right off the bat, we see this is a odd-shaped cloud, that looks like that could be some type of craft. And I'm going to say it is, but that's not even what I'm going to focus on. So I just noticed some strange stuff kind of happening in here, the usual. I've been looking at with a keen eye on the skies for, diligently day and night for over 3 years now. So, I really can pick out things, and I've already had an eye for detail. But I do believe I've gotten some kind of upgrade. I don't know if any of you are noticing this. Absolutely some kind of shift is happening on this planet, because I noticed about a year ago my hearing became like Superman hearing. I could hear somebody in distress a few blocks away, and I asked a neighbor walking along the street in between me and the sound of distress, and they didn't hear anything, and they had full hearing. And so now I believe I'm getting an upgrade on the Superman kind of vision, because being able to pick out these things this week, I don't know what's going on. If you saw my previous shows, the last two kind of back to back, we have a huge planetary body very close, in the sky on one of them. And then the other one was catching the Sasquatch or Yowie's cloaking, midlight cloak. Really crazy stuff on somebody else's footage on anyway, just go look at 186 show. That's all I'll say. Anyway, and the one before it. But we're going to take a good look now at JM's photos. And so anyway, all that to say, there is so much going on in the skies. And as I always say, it doesn't matter where you are on this planet. You go outside, you look up, you're going to see something. And so especially if you just kind of get a feeling like something is going on more than meets the eye, just take a picture, and I do leave it open. I have my my email address, in the contact information in the description box below. Should anybody think that you've got something and you're just curious of what might be in there, if it comes in at the right timing, maybe I can take a look at it and run it up and see what we can find. But like I said, it's guaranteed. Wherever anyone is on this planet you go out, there's going to be something hiding in the clouds. That's where we're at now these days. So anyway, let's get into this now. So we have A, B, and C. Those were just my generic areas to try, look at whatever's going on. So already I've run some enhancements on the right-hand side. So the original's on the left, the right is the enhanced version. Now, for anybody who's new here, just going to, I invite you to look at some of my older shows, and you can see the progression of what I've, come through. I've come a long way since my very first show. And I'm seeing more and more, by the minute. But what I do is run enhancements, and all I'm doing is taking the existing photo, the original photo, and upping or lowering attributes, levels, of attributes of the photo. Excuse me. Hang on one second. Okay, I'm back. So all that means is that I'm upping or lowering either the contrast, color saturation, brightness, maybe sharpness and warmth, and that's it. And I do that manually. I don't run filters, no preset filters. So I adjust it incrementally, painstakingly. I go through. Sometimes the process is quicker than others on other photos. It depends on how murky or how much particulate is veiling a particular scene. And so, there's a lot of other factors. But for the most part, that's what I do. So here's an example on the right. I start to enhance it, and then I keep zooming in and do even more and more enhancement until I really start seeing some wild stuff. So here we go. Already, I didn't even label. Hold on one second again. Sorry, when I step away, I'm just clearing my voice. So already over here, I didn't label that. I see a hole in a straight line coming up near in the vicinity of it, and some weird different color signatures happening. And that's a little tip off something that, more than meets the eye is probably cloaking in there. I see weird movement. I see parallel things sweeping up by B.1. I see a sphere. It even looks like it has a little face on it. And I see something bigger kind of wanting to emerge here with structure to it. And I see a little standalone thing kind of flying with vapor trail behind it. So already I can see all of this without even doing much enhancement. There's a perfect circle here, like the end of a cylinder. And then over here, I just suspect there's activity because there's an oblong elliptical form. And there's a big blur out and fuzz out in general. And usually that is a cloaking technique. So I know there's a lot to look at here. So we're going to move along. Oh, let me go back. So first we'll look at this area, this little cluster here at A and B. We'll get to the C part later. So here we go, A and B. So look at this. With more enhancement, we have a straight line if you follow my cursor with shadow underlining it, and then it goes back. We have this weird little like nub, I don't know what to call that little dome in the middle of whatever this thing is. We get the hint of a straight line back here, or perhaps the edge of a rectangular plate or something, very engineered. This, again, this over here, this little grouping, they're all on a line. That would not occur with a natural cloud system. Then we've got a perfect hole right over here. And we have this little object that looks like it has a vapor trail, and there's a notch out, if you look where my cursor is, right there. Got this straight line, there's a break in it, and it looks like this little thing descended and is flying with a vapor trail behind it. Now up here, this could look like a rimmed element, and this is all going to be look very different. I'm to you and perhaps me at the same time, because when I narrate this show, I'm doing it on a laptop screen, which is at a certain bigger scale. If I had a handheld device which was smaller, more in the vicinity of a thumbnail image, I would probably see a lot more maybe in some ways, and see things very differently. So if I, no pun intended, pass over something with the holiday, Good Friday over here, and then related religions. If I pass over something or miss something and you're like, how could she not see that? It's like right there. That's why. Okay, now conversely, I might see more than if somebody out there is you're just looking at it a smaller handheld size. And yet again, this will look different to somebody if you run it up on a bigger screen. Okay, so that's just my little disclaimer there if I miss stuff. But for now, we'll look and we'll see, like, if you follow my cursor, here's the end of a pipe with a hole, and we can just see some vapor coming out of it as well. But some of this is going to get clearer and clearer the more I go into more enhancements. So for now, down at C.2, I just see there's a straight line, so I know there's some kind of engineered activity going on down here, likely cloak and craft with a vapor trail behind it under the C.2 part. I look over here, and over here we have a straight tube coming off the edges of these things. So could craft might be coming and going, flying out of this camouflaged area. And this could be a machine part sticking up out of a cloaking craft. I've seen that a lot over the last several years. And it also changes in color signatures, so there's no reason, if all of this is in the same plane, it should all be this kind of golden color, and yet it's not. It turns green, so that shows you that there's a different material or some kind of different temperature on the thing. So anyway, we know something's going on here. And again, there's a perfect hole down here. It looks like things, are going down into it. And then we got other little weird telltale signs that we've got cloak and craft activity going on over here. But again, like I said, there's going to be a ton going on in the scene. Even up here, we have kind of a triangular form. It's a little murky, but it's there. And there's a hole. There are a couple holes there. different color signature, different animals, so to speak. But I don't even want to get distracted by some of these ancillary things around the perimeter, because our target focus is going to be here at A and B, and especially at C, because that's where our little being is going to be popping up. So let's move along. And here I just do different levels of, again, color saturation and contrast, and I play around incrementally and painstakingly so until to yield, the optimal view at some of these things, these hard edges. Look at this again. This whole thing is in an engineered element that's popping out of this heavy cloak material. And over here where I have the question marks, that's purple with a hole in it, and it's more in triangular shape, and it's different than everything else happening around here. And then again, we have this hole that just stays. It's a perfect, look at it. It's got actually a double rim. So, that is a perfect, well-formed ellipse. And then we have also these little weird holes every now and then you're going to see pop up. So no matter how you slice it, that means we're dealing with engineered objects. When you have a perfectly cut, like laser cut rim around there, straight edge here, if you follow my cursor, that's even a perfect circle right here in the front facing us. And then you start to pick out other things like there's a disc here with grooves, looks like an old vinyl record, and with a little center circular piece here too. Sometimes looks more like a shield. So the more you look, you're going to see these things. Look, here's a perfect circle, at the perimeter here. And then as we get towards C.3, starts to see a perfect curve here. Again, we have another hole. And now I'm starting to see a pipe come out toward me. That's a clear pipe if you look where my cursor is looping around. That's a pipe coming toward me. It's got a shadow to it, and it's got a hole at the end. How do I know? We're going to zoom in more and more and more. And as I was looking, this seemed to be, this swoop of a thing was connected to this hole. And then I started to make out shapes. And then, eventually you're going to see our little being in here very clearly, as clear as I can get. Anyway, let's keep going. So focusing over here again, look at this. This is a perfect cut edge, really crisp edge of an ellipse with another, lip of one, going down below, further below. And then here's this little thing that I was saying. It looks like, actually now I see the end of a pipe here, and where this splits, where there's a cutout in this straight line, it looks like this thing may be, again, descended down and is heading this way. Now as we look at it, we see again a circle. It's a disc, and it's got a raised edge with a shadow. It's very clear. It's like a plate, if the rim around the plate were raised and the lower part were flat. And then, we've got structure. We start to see very rigid structure, all over the place. A couple holes here. It's enough to tell me we're dealing with engineered machine parts, hands down. I used to have to draw machine parts by hand before computers and with computers, so I know from whence I speak when it's a machine part. Here we have also something moving along here, and I start to see perfect holes and regular spacing. So again, that shows intelligent design. And hang on one second. Okay, I'm back. And again, this would be a case where if I had a smaller handheld device and I was narrating the show, I would see so much more, because I can see now a perfect ring. Excuse me, if you look to the right of this slide, the darker blue, look like a perfect ring. And these look like, two pieces that are, machine parts. And maybe these are the back sides of, engines or exhaust output, something. See what you see there. But now I really want to get over to our, feature of the day over here at C.4, so we'll get there. I just sometimes I take out some of the color, if you notice. Sometimes I go straight on to black and white or grayscale, because it helps us to adjust our eyes and look at things maybe in a different way. When we remove the color, more tends to jump out at times. So anyway, I'm not going to belabor this whole side too much longer. I invite you, when I'm done with the show, to go back and watch it at your own pace. Really, really look with your own eyes and see what else you can pick out of the scene. There's so much going on. Like over here to the left, we've got another like chisel cut, like laser cut rim, in a depression and then a hole. And then it even echoes here, that curve. You see that perfect curve? Those are concentric. Those are like, in the curve world parallel, precise. So we're dealing with the machined parts, okay? All right, let's see what else we have. Oh, then I did like a big washout, a lot of brightness, just to see what's the core and the essence left when we really blow out this stuff. And look at, we've got a straight edge up here, really straight edge. So again, we're dealing with a machined element. I think we're looking at the back end of a triangular craft is what we're seeing here. there's a pipe here and a pipe here. And this might even be vapor trail coming off of this thing, and it's got cloaking material over it. And when I talk about cloaking material, you see it here too. You see it kind of break down. It looks like it, kind of, I say wafting, not wafting, over some more solid objects. And I refer to the cloaking material as plasma, just as my go-to. I'm referring to something heavier and denser than just water vapor, and it really kind of hugs and clings to objects and does a great job cloaking. So anyway, we see a lot of kind of suspect things, again, very rigid elements in here that show me that's engineered. That's like, look at this, is a stick. It's like a pipe, no question. I would love, as I always say, to see all of this without smoke and mirrors, so to speak. So anyway, let's keep moving. Okay, now we're getting to the part I really wanted to see. So here's that hole I kept talking about with the double rim, just for reference. And now we had this thing that was connecting on over here. Well, excuse me, if you look at C.7, I don't know, maybe you can make it out already. I wasn't even seeing this little being. This is the head and the neck, and this is the little craft he's in, or she, or it. But what caught my attention was this. So when we're going to zoom in on this, this is a curve with a straight stick slamming in perpendicular to it. That's a machined part. There's no way, it's engineered. There's no way a cloud would just do that. A cloud doesn't have something move in on the perpendicular. And so we know, again, it's got geometry to it, symmetry. It's an object. It's an object with intelligent design behind it. So then when I started looking at this, I also looked at the color signatures. And if you look at the warm part versus the green color, the warmer kind of rust orange beige, right? We start to see that this has the makings of a craft, the outside of it. And I'm saying that because when we zoom in, you're going to see straight lines that are parallel. We're going to see holes, more ellipses, and everything showing you, the pipes coming out, that we're dealing with craft. Now, what's interesting is this, I'm calling this a being. When we zoom in, you're going to see it, the head, the two eyes, the neck, and like the shoulders. And it even looks like there's like a dome over it, or maybe the dome itself is just like a plasma material. That I can't tell you for sure. But already we kind of have a circular element, semicircular element going over this being. And then we have two pipes here, so they're side by side. So I'm not sure if these are belonging to this craft down here, or if they are already belonging to another craft above. That's a little nebulous, but let's keep going. Right now, I know this is bitmappy, and if you have this on a bigger screen, it will help to squint your eyes to see it a little bit better, or if you have the chance to look at a smaller handheld device, it'll be clearer to you. But here we go. Again, this was the curve, and there's shadow to it, and the stick slamming into it perpendicular. So once again, that's a machine part. Then we have a straight line, if you follow my cursor, and then a straight line toward the front, and another straight line this way. It bends, goes straight. Again, clouds don't do that. And clouds especially don't have pipe-like elements that then move in perpendicular to this angle line. So again, we've got design going on. Right where my cursor is, there's two pipe ends. I'm not sure what this is exactly, but there is a lot going on with this little element too. But let's just focus on our little being. I hope you can see it. Again, I put down here, is it possible this is a being piloting a semi-cloaking craft? And I am saying, wait for it, because the next scene is a lot of fun. So anyway, if you look in the void, you see, or the shadow, there's a line and there's a line. Those two are parallel. And again, that doesn't happen with a natural cloud. So anyway, we start to see a head, a chin down here, two eyes, a little bit of a conical head, and again the shoulders, a little being just sitting in there proper, facing this way. So let's see what we get. Bam. Okay, I zoomed in. If I can sketch it, sketch overlay, and see straight lines, that means we're dealing with engineering of some type, okay? And to the point where I can get perfect holes, a sketch overlay, more of a ellipse on angle. This is a shield, so I just did the outer circle. There's another circle here, kind of like a hubcap or a dome. And then these pink lines represent where the pipes are oriented, so they are parallel to each other coming off this thing. I'm not exactly sure, what's going on this back end, but it's definitely something slamming into this, perpendicular, and again, these little holes, these little pipe ends. Maybe it's exhaust, maybe it shoots stuff out, I don't know. And again, I'm not sure what the relationship is of these two, but they're definitely, like you're looking at the end of the barrel of a gun, they're definitely pipe ends. And I'm not sure what's going on up here either. I almost see two tiny little beings in a more elongated craft, but I might be reading too far into it. This one, however, I know that I'm not. This is not a case of pareidolia. I will repeat, it is not a case of pareidolia with this particular scene. So I clearly got an eye and the mouth and the little chin and the proportions are absolutely a humanoid. It's not haphazard. It's not an accident. When you combine it with the machine parts, look at this. Even this curves. There's a hole here perfectly in the center of this thing. It's done with intelligence. All right, so let's move along. I'm just so excited. I hope you are too, because this is really fascinating. All right, so now everything kind of falls apart, but because I washed this out, I took the color out, and I was just playing around with going extreme with some of the contrasts and stuff. So yes, it's extreme bitmappy, but in this one, I just, here would be our little beings, so you kind of see, and that's the back end of what I was calling the craft. So, but here, you still see the pipe edge. Here now I start to see a triangular piece. I was just blowing this out to see if any other elements jumped out at me, and especially down here, but I really couldn't get it too much more. And something strange is going on up here, but I really couldn't get to it, so we're going to move on. Oh, I will say, though, that, again, we have this well-formed hole, much like on the other side over by B and A, where there's a little interior rim, like a doubled rim, but definitely a hole there, okay? All right, now, that was exciting, I think, anyway. Here we go to the next original photo, again from JM. Thank you so much. You've provided a world of things going on in there, whether you knew you were going to find that or not in your photos. It was a surprise to me. So when I first got these, I thought, okay, I first saw these two photos. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll run some enhancements. Let's see what we got. Like right off the bat, I said, okay, to myself, here we go. That's a craft. That's something cloaking in mid-cloak right there. And something's over here at B for sure. That's like a little, craft flying to or from this bigger craft, more than likely hiding in this very unusual, atypical, not a cloud of decades past shaped cloud. Okay. So then with enhancements, see, that's all I expected to find, really. Honestly, I was going to say, okay, JM, here's what we've got. Just this thing over here and this thing over here, and I'll pull out whatever I can here. Did not expect at all to find that being piloting a craft. But anyway, so when I looked to the right, I started doing some enhancements, and sure enough, if you follow my cursor, B.1, I start to see the craft emerging. I'm like, oh, dead on, that's a craft, absolutely. And then up here, I started to see the end of a pipe, and this curve kind of continues on, and the cloaking is, the heavy cloaking material, plasma, whatever you want to call it, is wafting over this thing. That's one bigger, craft right here. And there's a lot of other things tucked in and hiding in all of this. We kind of make out maybe two ends of circles here, ends of pipes. So, but again, there's so much, like the longer you look at these photos, the more you're going to find. So I'm just going to focus really predominantly on the A and B areas for now, but do find, what you're going to find. Take your time and really look. Like over here too, there's this black speck. That's not a bird, and I do zoom in on that one. But there's all sorts of things going on all over the place that we could just spend all day, in this area too, like anywhere on this photo. When we zoom in and do enhancements manually, we start to find more and more and more stuff. So let's move on. A and B, that's what we're going to be looking at. So this gets really interesting. Look at 8.2. Okay, I was just looking over here where my cursor is, because I could tell that's kind of what do you want to say? It's kind of an oval object, and it has symmetries. So like this void here and this void here is separated by some kind of not a membrane, but there's a separation, and it's symmetrical. So I know that's a craft. I even start to make out the end of a pipe or something down here. But the more I look, when we look to the left, there's a lot of disturbance. There's a lot of motion, a lot of activity. And so now I see the bottom of a disc. You see that with the rim? And it looks like some of this might be ejecting from here, or something else zoomed down created this disturbance is, I think, more likely what it is. I think something dislodged or flew down and kind of disrupted the cloaking material, situation over here. So what I'm going to say is we've got two very different crafts side by side that we're cloaking in this area. We have this pure disc. Look at it. We got a pure edge here, and this ring, you can't deny that. It's an object. And this over here, I think, is also a craft, but just cloaking in a very different way. It's kind of already going a little interdimensional looking. And then down here, of course, we have our B.2. We're going to zoom in on that. And we have this speck down here we're going to take a closer look at. So yeah, here's that little thing down here. And now we're going to really get into this, because this is that object that I just know is a craft, even without, doing any further work on these photos. But I'm calling elements A, B, because you're going to see two parallel forms, and then C, and then D, and a lot of very interesting things happening in the middle. So with more enhancements, you'll start to get the gist if you haven't already. We got that weird thing down here. It's not a bird. It's too rectangular. You'll see. We're going to zoom in on it. But here we have a line with a little pipe hole, hole again at the end of a pipe or something. And we have a straight line over here. So again, no cloud, just runs perfectly straight. So we have two parallel things. And I think these are even almost kind of like the SS Enterprise, where, the little sticks are holding up these kind of pontoon type things. It looks like there's structure holding each one up parallel to each other. Then we have the body of something, and then look over here, we have the end of a pipe here and the end of a pipe here, separated by a perfectly vertical little partition, like a vertical structural member. And then this is still coming straight, level with that big pipe end on it. So is this, a manned or, operated craft by some type of humanoid? Or is this just like an instrument that's sent out to create this, big artificial cloud stuff, There's something, there's got to be many things pumping out all this artificial cloud cover. All right, we're zooming in on that object again. So again, we've got some kind of hole. It's a straight line, Looks like structure, looks like a tube or a pipe, is connecting this to this body of this craft. And then again, look how perfectly straight that line is, and how symmetrical these little things are on each side. It's just crazy. We're catching it. This is, this is it. This is craft. And this is a straight line down here and straight up here. Now I zoomed in. This is again all very bitmappy. If you're on a laptop screen, if you're on the smaller scale, it might not be too bad. But again, we're just seeing that opening and how straight this is. Looks like there's another opening here too. Again, it's straight. This is a slightly different body, like object, but it's symmetrical. We got a straight line, and then this thing, comes to somewhat of a point and connects somehow in here. Anyway, to me, it's hands down structure. I don't need to, have it any clearer to pick that out. All right, here's that little blip. And as you can see, it looks pretty straight line. It's got a curious like green signature over here. Is that some kind of beacon or signal light? It looks like a little vapor might be involved on the back side. What the heck is that thing? I don't know. Okay, now we're going to zoom in on A. And again, this is the thing that I think is kind of cloaking beyond, kind of going a little bit interdimensional on us maybe. And then here, if you follow my cursor, you see the shadow, you see this crisp edge. You can deduce that it's going to keep traveling along here. That's that bigger weird cloud shape. So that's the top rim of it. So I'm going to say yes, that's the top of a craft cloaking. Because that line, that curve continues on through, down here, we have that perfect line. So that's a massive craft, this cloaking beyond. All right, again, you can see that crisp edge, following all the way down here. And then over here we can see, again, that's that bottom of that perfect disc and the hole, It's just incredible. Oh, and I'll go back. And there's something happening over here, but I can't really get at to too much more. It looks like another, perfect elliptical shape there. All right, and then this is still A, so I really kind of played around with a lot of the levels of the editing of the attributes, and I really couldn't get at too much more in this little object beyond here. I do have question marks, all over the place, just things to flag and talk about, what's going on in here. There's a weird little thing happening. We're going to take a look at this. It turns out that this looks like it's either tech, like a craft, or it's a little being who is shooting something. We see the trail, and this is an object shooting from it looks like a weapon. So if this is the front of the face, and this is the top of the head, and these are the two eyes, and this is like the little leg, bending down there, and that would be like some kind of gun or a weapon shooting some object projectile out. And then just beyond this little being is like a little rocket, it looks like the tip of a bullet with a vapor trail. And then if you look over here, we're going to be looking at this. This also looks like a similar thing like this tech. It looks like a rocket, with a vapor trail coming behind it. This all starts to get really, really weird. All of this down here, you can see it's got a weird, different type of camouflage mechanism here too, where it's all bitmappy and choppy. That's a way that I believe that these craft, this darker object, sends out either electromagnetic wave activity or radio waves or some kind of choppiness is sent out to disrupt, the cloak to really help hide these objects. Kind of like those doors, if you look at the movies from the 1940s, the old black and white detective movies, and they would, the person would knock on the door to go see the private eye, and the glass was called, it wasn't frosted, I forget what they call it, but it, it looked like ripples in a pool, and kind of, you can't, it was very distorted, you can't see through it clearly. That's what this reminds me of. Anyway, what I see is that this dark object is a cloaking craft. We've got a really weird structural thing happening here. We've got, it looks like a big metal frame, with pipes coming down and one coming out the back. So I think that this is some kind of craft, in an extreme cloaking mode, or, disrupting, the atmosphere mode to cloak. And I think this is a being that has come out and has like a little weaponry. It really is what it looks like to me. But we are going to zoom in on this and look at it a little closer. This is why I'm saying this again. This looks like two eyes, and again, the top of the head, and then it's got like a little gun and it's shooting this. And then this other thing, look how perfect this capsule is looking. It really looks like a bullet, with vapor coming out. Now, the reason why I think this is a being, I mean, of course, it could also just be a craft that looks like a being, like this could be two lights on the underside or something. But I'm feeling like it's taking on more of a being type look because of my previous show where I show the Sasquatch or the Yowies in interdimensional, like invisible mode cloaking, because it has this same kind of distortion to it, and their eyes and their head, everything kind of looks the same. So I'm throwing that out there to you. See if you think it's an organic being of some kind, or if you think it's just a craft that happens to look like a being. But look at this capsule. We start to see like rings around it, like colored, delineation that's like green, and then it gets a little more reddish, and there's a rim and shadow to it, and there's like fog, like smoke coming out of this thing. I don't know what this thing is, but it's being shot out of here, it looks like. And then over here, we're going to start to see that it looks like an elongated version of this thing. This whole scene is just so bizarre. And then, we look down here, we got this brighter white object, so that means something else is going on in here. These look like the ends of pipes or even faces. This gets really crazy, especially if we look over here. So see what you see in the scene. It's actually, acting really bizarre. I actually see another face in here. That might be paredolia, but it might not. But I wasn't even thinking of covering, this object. I'm still just focusing on like this little craft or person and or humanoid and whatever's going on around this with this clear capsule and these kind of weapons. I don't know what that is. Anyway, we're going to zoom in again and look at this. Just look at this. This is clearly an object. Like, is it a projectile, some kind of bomb or weapon? I don't know. This is feeling like more like a bomb or a weapon. Look how huge that is. It looks like the tip of a torpedo or missile head. I mean, is that not crazy? And I don't even know what's going on here. Like, how is this even launching that thing? And again, do we have a little being sitting here and those are the two eyes? And it's just, the whole thing is so bizarre. If you like, let me know in the comment section below what you're seeing. I mean, now it's starting to look even like another being is like climbing up over the rim of this thing with also some kind of weaponry. Over here, again, I see the tip. This looks very symmetrical. This is an engineered element. There's a perfect curve here, and it looks like it has rocket exhaust type stuff coming out the back and heading in this way, diving into this bigger cloaking body. So, like, again, if you venture to guess what the heck is going on in this scene, I'd be curious to compare notes on it. All right, so we're going to zoom in on just this little, what I'm going to call being, because, again, we'd have the two eyes. I'm not sure what's going on over here, but we see, like, clear banding, and some of these elements just are popping out pretty darn clear, considering, and anyway, I don't know what's going on in the back of this thing, but we have, like, a triangular shape. We have a pure straight line with a tip here, and then we have this, like, smoke and stuff, The whole scene is just bizarre. And I think there's like a being behind this being because it looks symmetrical, like there's two ears or something, or it's a helmet with two, things coming off of it. I'm just kind of really wowed at this point, and I'm going to leave it to you out there to see what you think is going on in this scene. It's really kind of trippy, but very exciting. All right, well, this is the back down to earth here. This is the photo of the day and the close of the show. Just a reminder that nature sends us love notes everywhere we look, even in the shadows. And I just happened to see the shadow on the wall, and it was forming a beautiful heart. So on that note, I just want to say thanks for planting yourself over here a while. Again, many, many thanks to JM over near Brisbane, and the other very kind Australian viewer who coordinated some of this to get the photos over to me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it. And again, let this all be food for thought, and just be really watching those skies. And even if you think there's nothing going on, if you feel something might be happening, take that photo, because you never know what's going to, pop up out of it. It literally. So anyway, again, thanks for joining me here, and I wish you all the best. Have a beautiful right now. All the best to you. Tremendous peace and love. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.